Welcome to our channel. Hollywood Movie Review. Barbie 2023 Movie Review. Barbie is a 2023 satirical fantasy comedy film directed by Greta Gerwig from a screenplay she wrote with her husband, Noah Baumbach. Based on the fashion dolls by Mattel, it is the first live-action Barbie film after numerous animated films and specials. Starring Margot Robbie as the title character and Ryan Gosling as Ken, the film follows them on a journey of self-discovery through Barbie Land and the real world following an existential crisis. The supporting cast includes America Ferrera, Michael Cera, Kate McKinnon, Issa Rae, Rhea Perlman, and Will Ferrell. A live-action Barbie film was announced in September 2009 by Universal Pictures with Lawrence Mark producing. Development began in April 2014, when Sony Pictures acquired the film rights. Following multiple writer and director changes and the casting of Amy Schumer and later Anne Hathaway as Barbie, the rights were transferred to Warner Bros. Pictures in October 2018. Robbie was cast in 2019, after Gal Gadot turned down the role due to scheduling conflicts, and Gerwig was announced as director and co-writer with Baumbach in 2020. The rest of the cast was announced in early 2022. Principal photography occurred primarily at Warner Bros. Studios, Leavesden, England, and at the Venice Beach Skatepark in Los Angeles from March to July 2022. Barbie premiered at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles on July 9, 2023, and was released in the United States on July 21. Its concurrent release with Universal Pictures Oppenheimer was the catalyst of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, encouraging audiences to see both films as a double feature. The film grossed $1.448 billion and achieved several milestones, becoming Warner Bros.' highest-grossing film, the highest-grossing film of 2023 and the 14th highest-grossing film of all time at the time of its release. Named one of the top 10 films of 2023 by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute, Barbie received widespread critical acclaim and other accolades, including 8 Academy Award nominations, among them Best Picture, winning Best Original Song for What Was I Made For? The song also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song, while the film received the inaugural Golden Globe Award for Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. A stereotypical Barbie resides with many different versions of herself in Barbie Land, a matriarchal society created by the collective human imagination, along with Kens and a group of discontinued models treated like outcasts due to their unconventional traits. While the Kens spend their days playing at the beach, considering it their profession, the Barbies hold prestigious jobs in law, science, politics, media, and so on. Ken, Beach Ken, is only happy when he is with Barbie, and he seeks a closer relationship with her, but she rebuffs him in favor of other activities and female friendships. One evening at a dance party, Barbie is suddenly stricken with worries about mortality. Overnight, she develops bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet, disrupting her routines and impairing the aura of classic perfection experienced by the Barbies. Weird Barbie, a disfigured doll, tells Barbie to find the child playing with her in the real world to cure her afflictions. Barbie travels to the real world, with Beach Ken joining her by stowing away in her convertible. After arriving in Venice Beach, Barbie punches a man for groping her, and is briefly arrested. She and Ken are then both arrested after not paying for new clothes. Alarmed by the doll's presence in the real world and remembering the skipper incident, the CEO of Mattel orders their recapture. Barbie tracks down her owner, a teenage girl named Sasha, who criticizes Barbie for encouraging unrealistic beauty standards. Distraught, Barbie discovers that Gloria, a Mattel employee and Sasha's mother, inadvertently caused Barbie's existential crisis after starting to play with Sasha's old Barbie dolls and drawing Barbies with dark emotions and thoughts. Mattel finds Barbie and attempts to put her in a toy box for remanufacturing, but a mysterious elderly woman named Ruth helps her escape. Gloria and Sasha arrive just in time to rescue Barbie from Mattel's executives, and the three travel to Barbie Land with the executives in pursuit. Meanwhile, Ken learns about patriarchy and feels respected for the first time. He returns to Barbie Island to persuade the other Kens to take it over. The Kens begin to indoctrinate the Barbies into submissive roles, such as agreeable girlfriends, housewives, and maids. Barbie arrives and attempts to convince the Barbies to be independent again, but becomes depressed when she fails. Gloria expresses her frustration with the conflicting standards that real-world women are expected to follow, and her speech restores Barbie's confidence. Aided by Sasha, Weird Barbie, Alan, Writer Barbie, and the discontinued dolls, Gloria uses her knowledge from the real world to deprogram the Barbies from their indoctrination. The Barbies then manipulate the Kens into fighting among themselves, which distracts them from enshrining male superiority into Barbieland's constitution, allowing the Barbies to regain power. Having now experienced systemic oppression for themselves, the Barbies resolve to rectify the faults of their previous society, emphasizing better treatment of the Kens and all outcasts. Barbie and Ken make amends, acknowledging their past mistakes. When Ken bemoans his lack of purpose without Barbie, she encourages him to find an autonomous identity. Barbie, who remains unsure of her own identity, meets with the ghost of Ruth Handler, Mattel co-founder and creator of the Barbie doll, who explains that Barbie's story has no set ending and her ever-evolving history surpasses her roots. After bidding goodbye to the other dolls and Mattel executives, Barbie decides to become human again and return to the real world. Sometime later, Gloria, her husband, and Sasha take Barbie, now going by the name Barbara Handler, to her first gynecologist appointment. The concept of a live-action Barbie film was in development at McKinnon Films in the mid-1980s. Renewed development on a film based on the Barbie toy line began in September 2009, when it was announced that Mattel had signed a partnership with Universal Pictures and producer Lawrence Mark, but nothing came to fruition. In April 2014, Mattel teamed with Sony Pictures to produce the film, which would have Jenny Bix writing the screenplay and Laurie McDonald and Walter F. Parks producing through their Parks plus McDonald Image Nation banner. Filming was anticipated to begin by the end of the year. In March 2015, Diablo Cody was brought onto the project to rewrite the screenplay, and Amy Pascal joined the producing team. Sony ordered further rewrites by Lindsay Beer, Bert V. Royal and Hillary Winston, who submitted separate drafts. In December 2016, Amy Schumer entered negotiations for the title role with Winston's screenplay. She helped rewrite the script with her sister, Kim Caramelli. In March 2017, she exited negotiations, initially saying it was due to scheduling conflicts with the planned June 2017 filming. She revealed in 2023 that she left due to creative differences with the film's producers. That July, Anne Hathaway was considered for the title role. Sony hired Olivia Milch to rewrite the screenplay and approached Alethea Jones to direct as a means of interesting Hathaway in signing. Jones was attached to direct by March 2018. In August 2018, Mattel CEO Ynon Kreiz hired film executive Robbie Brenner, who was later appointed head of Mattel Films. Sony's option on the project expired in October 2018, and film rights were transferred to Warner Bros. Pictures, causing Hathaway, Jones, McDonald, Parks, and Pascal to leave the project. Margot Robbie entered early talks for the role, and Patty Jenkins was briefly considered as director. Kreiz was determined to cast Robbie after meeting with her. Both he and Brenner felt that Robbie's appearance resembled that of a conventional Barbie doll and were impressed by her ideas. Initial meetings occurred at the Polo Lounge located in the Beverly Hills Hotel. Brenner eventually partnered with Robbie's production company, Lucky Chap Entertainment, and Robbie's husband Tom Ackerley and Josie McNamara were enlisted as producers. Robbie's casting was confirmed in July 2019. In her capacity as a producer, Robbie pitched Barbie to Warner Bros. Herself. During the green light meeting, she compared the film to Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, 1993, and also jokingly suggested that it would gross over $1 billion. Later on, she approached Greta Gerwig, whose previous films, particularly Little Women, 2019, Robbie enjoyed to screenwrite. Gerwig was in post-production for another film, and took the assignment on the condition that her husband, Noah Baumbach, also write the script. Gerwig would sign on to also direct the film in July 2021. Robbie said the film aimed at subverting expectations and giving audiences the thing you didn't know you wanted. In August 2023, Variety revealed that she would earn roughly $50 million in salary and box office bonuses as star and producer. As writers, Gerwig and Baumbach were given full creative freedom. They worked on the screenplay during the 2020 to 2021 COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns at their house in Long Island. Baumbach felt he understood the film's purpose once Gerwig had shown him the first scene, identifying the element as embracing mortality and sadness and sickness and everything that it means to be human. Gerwig was also inspired by the real-life story of Barbie creator Ruth Handler. Gerwig's film treatment consisted of an abstract poem on Barbie influenced by the Apostles' Creed. For the narrative arc, she was partially inspired by the nonfiction book Reviving Ophelia, 1994, by Mary Piffer, which accounts the effects of societal pressures on American teenage girls. She also found inspiration in classic Technicolor musicals such as The Red Shoes, 1948, and The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, 1964, and said, "They have such a high level of what we came to call authentic artificiality. You have a painted sky in a sound stage. Which is an illusion, but it's also really there. The painted backdrop is really there. The tangibility of the artifice is something that we kept going back to." The script also contains candid criticism of Mattel, which created skepticism among Mattel officials when they received the first version. However, Craze decided to trust Gerwig. Brenner noted that being safe in this world doesn't work, as she interpreted Barbie to be a bold and trailblazer figure. As a result, Will Ferrell's portrayal as the Mattel CEO was meant to be an allegory for corporate America. Craze praised Ferrell and said that while Mattel officials took their brand seriously, they did not take themselves seriously. 50 Gerwig and Robbie had felt the film was most certainly a feminist film, but Mattel officials rejected the description because of the inherent sexism and misandry. Gerwig and Robbie informed the studio that they would explore the controversies and problematic parts of Barbie, but also convinced the studio that they would respect the product. Gerwig was also influenced by her childhood experiences with Barbie. Her mother discouraged her from purchasing such dolls, but eventually allowed her to. Opting to acknowledge the controversial nature of the Barbie doll, Gerwig chose to create a film where she would be both doing the thing and subverting the thing, in the sense that she would be celebrating the feminism behind Barbie while also noting the controversial beauty standards associated with it. She was also fascinated by the idea that humans created dolls, which in turn imitate humans, feeling that we're in constant conversation with inanimate objects while also conveying an affirmative message to the audience to just be yourself and know that that's enough. The film deliberately juxtaposed contradictory messaging, such as critiquing consumerism yet glamorizing plastic products, and in the film's ending, where Barbie desires to be more than just a plastic doll. Gerwig made the film as an earnest attempt to make amends between affirming women's worth and conveying the impossibility of perfection, which some perceived to be standards associated with Barbie. Reflecting upon the maximalism of Barbie, Gerwig said the ontology of Barbie was similar to what she perceived as William Shakespeare's maximalism, which she enjoyed in his works. She grounded the film in what she described as a heightened theatricality that allows you to deal with big ideas in the midst of anarchic play. She also described the film as being anarchic, unhinged, and humanist. She felt the film originated from the deep isolation of the pandemic, opining that the line in which Barbie says, "Do you guys ever think about dying?" exemplifies the film's anarchic nature. She also found the idea of Barbie being constrained in multitudes as all of these women are Barbie and Barbie is all of these women to be trippy, and felt as a result, Barbie did not need to have her own personal life, as she was attuned to her environment. She also described the story as mirroring a girl's journey from childhood to adolescence, though she did not deem it to be a coming-of-age film and felt that the film ultimately ends up, really, about being human. Primarily, she began her writing by interpreting Barbie as living in a utopia and eventually experiencing reality, where she would have to confront all the things that were shielded from them in this place Barbie-Eland. She also drew parallels to the story of Adam and Eve and taking inspiration from John Milton's Paradise Lost, particularly being inspired by the concept that there is no poetry without pain. To underscore the tragic elements of Barbie and Ken facing the real world, she focused on elements of dissonance. As such, she chose to keep a scene featuring Robbie's Barbie telling an older woman that she is beautiful after being requested to remove it, as she felt that the scene epitomized the heart of the movie. She also desired to provide a counterargument to Barbie by featuring a scene in which Barbie learns that some women do not like her, and felt it gave the film real intellectual and emotional power. As such, a scene is featured in which Barbie is being stared at inappropriately on the Venice beach, which Gerwig chose to feature as she felt it was a universal experience, being especially relevant for actors. She was inspired by an audition she did in which she wore overalls and felt that she did not perform well in. The ending of the film features Barbie saying the line "I'm here to see my gynecologist," with Gerwig describing it as a mic drop kind of joke. She had chosen to include the line as she had wanted to instill confidence in younger girls, as she had been embarrassed about her body when she was younger. Barbie also explores the negative consequences of hierarchical power structures, with Gerwig saying that she extrapolated that Barbie's rule and Ken's are an underclass and felt it was similar to the Planet of the Apes. Ken has low self-esteem and seeks approval from Barbie, which Gerwig identified as a good source for a story. Gosling compared Gerwig's vision to Milton Glazer's I Love New York logo, as he felt Gerwig created the film's characters as a way of understanding the contemporary world. Ken has the only power ballad in the film, and Gerwig had identified it as the moment in which she felt the film transcended what a Barbie film traditionally should have been. Gerwig and Robbie searched for actresses with Barbie energy, a trait they described as a certain ineffable combination of beauty and exuberance. In October 2021, Ryan Gosling entered final negotiations to play Ken in the film. America Ferrera, Simu Liu, and Kate McKinnon were cast in February 2022. Liu auditioned for the film after his agent raved about the script being one of the best they had ever read. In March 2022, Ariana Greenblatt, Alexandra Shipp, and Emma Mackey were revealed to be in the cast. Will Ferrell joined the cast in April, along with Issa Rae, Michael Cera, Hari Nef, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Rhea Perlman, Ncuti Gatwa, Emerald Fennell, Sharon Rooney, Scott Evans, Anna Cruz Kane, Connor Swindells, Ritu Arya, and Jamie Demetriou. In April 2023, a trailer revealed that John Cena had joined the cast. It was later reported that Cena had spontaneously been offered a part in the film after paying for Robbie's meal in London during production. Helen Mirren narrated the film's trailer and the film itself. Robbie and Gosling were each paid $12.5 million for their participation as actors. Olivia Colman filmed a cameo, but it was cut from the film. Robbie wanted Gal Gadot to play a Barbie in the film, but Gadot was unavailable due to scheduling conflicts. Gerwig wanted her frequent collaborators Timothy Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan to make cameo appearances, but neither was available. Gerwig later revealed that during a visit to the set, Chalamet said he should have been in the film. Additionally, Bowen Yang, Dan Levy and Ben Platt were considered to play Kens. Jonathan Groff was the first choice for Alan, played by Sarah, but turned it down. Matt Bomer auditioned and was offered a role but ultimately turned it down due to the production schedule. Ben Affleck was initially set to cameo during the beach fight sequence, but scheduling conflicts with Air 2023 resulted in him having to back out, and his role in the film was rewritten for Sarah. Sarah Greenwood and Katie Spencer were the set designer and decorator, respectively, for Barbie. For the Barbie dream house, they drew inspiration from mid-century modernist architecture found in Palm Springs, including the 1946 Kaufman Desert House by Richard Neutra, and the photography of Slim Aarons. Gerwig wanted to capture what was so ridiculously fun about the dream houses, alluding to its previous models, and referenced Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 1985, the paintings of Wayne Thiebaud, and the apartment of Gene Kelly's character in the Technicolor musical An American in Paris, 1951. Everything needed to be tactile, because toys are, above all, things you touch, Gerwig said of the use of practical effects instead of computer-generated imagery, CGI, to capture the sky and the San Jacinto Mountains. The set design is also noted for its extensive use of a specific shade of pink, Pantone 219. Roscoe Laboratories, the film's paint supplier, faced international shortages due to COVID-19 related supply chain issues, as well as freezing temperatures that damaged stock. The film's sets required the company's entire remaining stock of pink. Because Gerwig also wanted to use practical builds, and had to film sequences in miniature models, then composite the footage onto the actual image. She began discussing the production design with cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto, Greenwood, and costume designer Jacqueline Duran a year in advance of filming. She also called director Peter Weir for inspiration on Barbie Eland, with the idea of creating it as an interior soundstage world. Costume designer Jacqueline Duran, who previously collaborated with Gerwig on Little Women, 2019, employed a practical approach to create Barbie's wardrobe. The defining characteristic of what she wears is where she's going and what she's doing. It's about being completely dressed for your job or task. To match the film's Barbie Eland setting, Duran and her team created costumes made of roughly 15 color combinations that ripped off the idea of a French Riviera beach in the early 1960s and drew inspiration from actress Brigitte Bardot. For Ken's outfits, Duran zeroed in a look composed of colorful sportswear from the 1980s, while actor Ryan Gosling suggested a Ken-branded underwear for the character. Duran closely adapted outfits from past iterations of Barbie dolls, such as the 1993 Western Stampin' dolls and the 1994 Hot Skatin' dolls. She noted the Barbie dolls as a very useful way to look at different ideas of femininity, what that means, who owns it, and who it's aimed at, and reflected this idea in how she dressed the characters. While the majority of the clothing featured in the film were sourced by Duran and her team, they also pulled pieces from the fashion archives of Chanel. Ivana Primorac was the lead hair and makeup artist for the film. In 2024, Primorac and Marie Larkin and Claire Corsic jointly won the Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild Award for Best Period and / or Character Hairstyling in a feature-length motion picture for Barbie. Principal photography began on March 22, 2022, at Warner Bros. Studios, Leavesden in England and wrapped on July 21. Among the notable locations was the Venice Beach Skatepark in Los Angeles, California. Rodrigo Prieto served as cinematographer. Prior to filming, Gerwig organized a sleepover with the female cast members for them to establish positive relationships, also feeling that it would be the most fun way to kick everything off. She opted to use filming techniques from the 1950s, as Barbie had been a popular toy since 1959, to create a period-accurate look. She also watched Powell and Pressburger's A Matter of Life and Death, 1946, to understand how pre-digital visual effects were used to create theatricality. To highlight the tragic nature of Barbie and Ken facing the difficulties of the real world, she directed Robbie and Gosling to act as if they were in a drama. Editor Nick Huoy returned to collaborate with Greta Gerwig, having also cut Lady Bird and Little Women. Finding the tone of the film was a playful experiment working collaboratively with Gerwig and VFX supervisor Glenn Pratt and VFX producer Nick King. Pratt focused on blending the practical with the digital. Practical miniatures were built, scanned, and captured with photogrammetry, inspiring the creation of hundreds of digital miniatures to populate Barbie Eland vistas, set extensions, backdrops and full CGI shots. Pratt worked with visual effects studios Framestore on Barbie Eland scenes and UPP on the invisible effects deployed in the real world and a car pursuit sequence. The palette chosen for the scenes in Barbie Eland was inspired by the classic 3-strip Technicolor look, and was named Techno Barbie. This required the creation of a software called PPL, a color correcting program which separates the image into the three basic components of blue, green, and red, which can then be manipulated individually. Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt scored the film. The score was released by Watertower Music on August 4, 2023. Ronson was also tasked with curating a compilation soundtrack that matched Gerwig's vision for Barbie. As the film was being edited, Ronson and Gerwig showed some of its scenes to artists they wanted on the soundtrack. The soundtrack, Barbie the Album, was released on July 21, 2023, and features music by Ava Max, Charlie XCX, Dominic Fike, 50/50, Gail, Haim, Ice Spice, Kali, Karol G, Khalid, Sam Smith, Lizzo, Nicki Minaj, Billie Eilish, Pink Pantheress, Tame Impala, The Kid Laroi, and cast members Ryan Gosling and Dua Lipa. Dance. The Night by Dua Lipa was released as the album's lead single on May 26, 2023. It was followed by Wat Haiti by Karol G on June 2, 2023. Angel by Pink Pantheress was released on June 9, 2023, as the first promotional single. Barbie World by Nicki Minaj and Ice Spice was released as the album's third single on June 23, 2023. The album's second promotional single, Speed Drive by Charlie XCX was released on June 30, 2023. On July 6, 2023, the album's third and final promotional single, Barbie Dreams by 50/50 and Kala ETH was released. 112 On July 10, 2023, Warner Brothers released a preview clip of Ryan Gosling singing I'm Just Ken. The album's fourth single, What Was I Made For? By Billie Eilish, was released on July 13, 2023. Despite fan expectations for the 1997 song Barbie Girl by the pop band Aqua to feature in the film, Ulrik Mahler Jorgensen, manager for Aqua lead singer Leen Nystrom, said that it was not used. Variety speculated that it was due to bad relations between Mattel and MCA Records, the song's American publisher, who engaged in a series of lawsuits over it from 1997 to 2002. Barbie World, a rework of the song, was instead used in the film. It samples Barbie Girl. Aqua is credited as a performer and co-writer on the track. The film features multiple renditions of the 1989 song Closer to Fine by the Indigo Girls and the 1997 song Push by Matchbox 20, the latter of which Ken adopts as his favorite song after visiting the real world, which becomes a tongue-in-cheek anthem of patriarchal dominance in the fictional Barbie Island. While many reviews of the film interpreted this as a critique of the song, director Greta Gerwig said that she was a fan of Matchbox 20 and I never put anything in a movie I don't love. Spice. Up Your Life by Spice Girls plays in a flashback scene showing a little girl's rough play creating weird Barbie. Barbie received an extensive marketing campaign. In the months leading up to its release, Mattel entered into several Barbie-themed promotional partnerships and collaborations with various brands, including Airbnb, Aldo Group, Bloomingdale's, Burger King Brazil, Chi Hair Care, Forever 21, Gap Incorporated, Hot Topic, Krispy Kreme Philippines, Miniso, Primark, Progressive Insurance, Spirit Halloween, Ulta, and Xbox. Studio parent company Warner Brothers. Discovery also engaged in cross-promotion through its TV channels, most prominently with an HGTV renovation reality competition series, Barbie Dream House Challenge, co-produced by Mattel Television, which premiered shortly before the film's release. Trade publication Variety reported that Warner Brothers spent $150 million promoting Barbie, more than the $145 million budget used to produce the film itself. A first-look image of the film was revealed during a Warner Brothers presentation at CinemaCon in April 2022. Released to the public on April 27, 2022, it showed Margot Robbie as Barbie, behind the wheel of her pink 1956 Chevrolet Corvette. Collider commented, "This photo is just further proof that Robbie was made to play this role. She just looks like a Barbie doll come to life, it's almost uncanny." On June 15, 2022, a second still featuring Ryan Gosling as Ken was released. Despite noting similarities between his look in the image and his previous roles, The Guardian asserted that there is a very strong chance that this will be Gosling's defining role. A Barbie booth was opened at the 2022 CCXP event in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The film's first teaser trailer debuted during preview screenings of Avatar: The Way of Water in December 2022. It featured a parody of the opening Dawn of Man sequence in Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001, A Space Odyssey, where Robbie, clad in Barbie's original 1959 outfit, imitates an alien monolith whose influence on the history of dolls is narrated by Helen Mirren. 148. Along with a theatrical poster, the teaser trailer was released to the public on December 16, 2022. 149. Rolling Stone praised the 2001 homage and the trailer's vibrant colors, and remarked on its vague hints of the plot, "One has to wonder when, or better yet how, it will all get shaken up." At the 2023 Academy Awards, Robbie co-presented a tribute to Warner Brothers with Morgan Freeman. During the montage, they reflected on the roles and projects they had shared with the company, and Freeman eventually referred to Robbie as Barbie. Citation needed. On April 4, 2023, 24 character posters of the several Barbies and Kens featured in the film, tagged with brief descriptions, were shared on Barbie's social media accounts. Empire remarked, "You might have thought that multiverse fever would be constrained generally to comic book films and never would have called it Oscar winners Everything Everywhere All at Once. But, it seems Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie will also be flooding the screen with variants, this time of plastic dolls Barbie and Ken." A second teaser trailer was unveiled shortly after the poster's release, featuring a rendition of the Beach Boys' 1964 surf rock song Fun, Fun, Fun. The Washington Post noted that the visually striking and polysemic teaser captivated multiple demographics because of its humor, color palette, and the Barbie doll's cross-generational appeal. An official trailer for the film was released on May 25, 2023. Critics noted its existential tone set against upbeat music. Ben Travis of Empire said, "There's much to discuss here, not least that it looks visually impeccable, and speculated Academy Awards attention for its production and costume design." A float promoting the film was featured in the 2023 WeHo Pride Parade in Los Angeles. Two of its LGBTQ+ cast members, Alexandra Shipp and Scott Evans, were present. In June 2023, a French Barbie poster went viral for including the tagline "Elle peut tout faire. Oui, c'est just Ken, she can do everything. He's just Ken." Ken is the Verlan slang term for fuck in French, i.e. the phonological inversion of nique, while say, he is a homophone for ça eat, he knows how, so the tagline could also be read as she can do everything. He just knows how to fuck. Analysts concluded that the pun was most likely intentional, as the slang term is common knowledge among French speakers. Warner Brothers would neither confirm nor deny this leading up to the release. Pink billboards, blank apart from the film's release date, appeared worldwide, and a real-world Barbie dream house in Malibu, California became available to rent through Airbnb. Actress Margot Robbie received praise for her red carpet fashion while promoting the tour. Designers including Vivienne Westwood, Hervé Leger, and Schiaparelli created custom outfits inspired by recognizable Barbie doll clothes. On July 14, 2023, SAG-AFTRA, an American labor union of film, television, and voice actors, declared a strike action, effectively halting any promotional event that involved the guild's members. Robbie showed her support for the action. SAG-AFTRA president Fran Drescher later claimed that the studios duped the guild into accepting a 12-day extension for negotiations to continue promoting summer films like Barbie. On July 21, 2023, Mattel and Miniso Group Holding Limited opened the Barbie Core flagship store in Changsha, China, coinciding with the film's theatrical release. Coinciding with the film's release, a stop-motion crossover trailer with the animated film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem from Paramount Pictures, produced by Seth Rogen, was released on July 20, 2023. In August 2023, it was announced that the film would be re-released in IMAX theaters on September 22, 2023, for 1 week only, along with a new post-credit scene. The IMAX edition starts with an on-screen introduction by Greta Gerwig, who notes the advantages of the IMAX format. The post-credits scene includes an intro of Margot Robbie's Barbie, in her 1959 Barbie bathing suit, taking a human-sized Ken doll on camera, which transforms into Ryan Gosling's Ken. It is followed by humorous outtakes, example whether Barbie should marry Barney the dinosaur, and a voiceover by Robbie hoping people enjoyed the experience. 2. As Sarah Little notes on Screen Rant, the meta post-credits scene features narrator Helen Mirren as herself walking in on Midge, played by Emerald Fennell, giving birth. The film also received a Spanish-language release in the United States and Puerto Rico on the Theatres app. Barbie was released on the same day as Oppenheimer, a biographical film about J. Robert Oppenheimer, written and directed by Christopher Nolan, based on the 2005 book American Prometheus, and distributed by Universal Pictures. Due to the tonal and genre contrast between the two films, many social media users created memes and ironic posts about how the two films appealed to different audiences, and how they should be viewed as a double feature. The concept was named Barbenheimer. In an interview with La Vanguardia, Oppenheimer star Cillian Murphy endorsed the phenomenon, saying, "My advice would be for people to go see both, on the same day. If they are good films, then that's cinema's gain." The phenomenon was widely credited with boosting interest in the film, with a total of 79% of tickets sold over the weekend, 52% for Barbie, being for the two films, a total of 18.5 million people. Barbie was released on digital download on September 12, 2023, and was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray, and DVD on October 17, 2023, by Warner Bros. Home Entertainment. The film was available for streaming exclusively on Max on December 15, 2023, including an American Sign Language version. The controversy over the alleged appearance of the 9-line, a depiction of the South China Sea from Chinese perspective, in the film began when Vietnam's Film Censorship Authority banned the film for allegedly displaying such lines. In contrast, the counterpart from the Philippines requested that the lines in question be blurred. Both countries have banned the films Abominable, 2019, and Uncharted, 2022, for featuring the actual 9-line. The 9-line is controversial due to maritime border disputes between China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines. On July 3, 2023, Vietnamese newspaper Toi Tre quoted Six Kien Ton Six, head of the Department of Cinema, as announcing that Barbie would be banned in Vietnam because it contained the offending image of the 9-line. The Tien Phong newspaper reported that the 9-line appears multiple times in the film. The film was originally scheduled to be released in Vietnam on July 21. Speaking to Voice of America, Trinh Hue Long, founder of the research group Legal Initiatives for Vietnam, said, "The censors will even be praised for overreacting to the unclear map, by both their superiors and the public, because anti-China sentiment runs deep into the country's political culture, and that the government is surely using legitimate nationalist reasoning to strengthen its entire censorship system." While Michael Castor at the Free Expression Group Article 19 said, "Maps are political, and borders often bear historical wounds, but rather than ensuring free and open discussion, the knee-jerk response to censor seldom supports historical or transitional justice." Speaking to Vox, University of California, Berkeley professor Peter Zeineman said, "To the Chinese, the 9-line signifies their legitimate claims to the South China Sea, and to the Vietnamese, it symbolizes a brazen act of imperialist bullying that elevates Chinese national interest over an older shared set of interests of socialist brotherhood." Harvard University professor Hugh Tam Ho Tai Six said since the producers of the film were aiming for the mainland Chinese market in the hopes that it would be a blockbuster, they are ready to accept mainland China's view of geography. Disinformation works by repetition. New York University professor Kevin Lee said, "In my view, banning Barbie was a no-brainer." In response to Vietnam's ban, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning stated at a press briefing on July 4 that the South China Sea issue should not be linked with normal cultural exchange. When news of Vietnam's ban reached the Philippines, Senator Francis Tolentino, vice chairman of the Philippine Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, told CNN Philippines that Barbie may also be banned in the country because it denigrates Filipino sovereignty. Senator Jinggoy Estrada called the film to be banned over the alleged inclusion of the 9-dash line. Opposition Senator Risa Hontiveros quipped the movie is fiction, and so is the 9-dash line, and suggested adding a disclaimer to the film instead of banning its release. Senator Robin Padilla, chairman of the Senate Mass Media Committee, suggested that the film producers must edit out references to the 9-dash line or risk the film being banned. On July 11, the Philippines Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, MTRCB, came to the conclusion that there was no basis to banning the film as the map was simply cartoonish and that there was no clear nor outright depiction of the 9-dash line, as the line in the film was not U-shaped and had 8 dots or dashes instead of 9. The board gave the film a PG rating, as well as allowing it to be screened in the country. However, they requested Warner Brothers to blur the controversial lines in order to avoid further misinterpretations. Senator Tolentino said that he respected the MTRCB's decision, but expressed his dismay at it emerging a day before the 7th anniversary of Philippines' victory in an arbitration over the 9-dash line on July 12, 2016. The film was released in the Philippines on July 19, 2023. With the rising concerns over the alleged appearance of the 9-dash line, several media outlets pointed to a drawing of a world map which appears in a trailer for the film. The Los Angeles Times described the particular image as a map of the real world which looks as if it's been drawn in crayon by a child with a line of dashes alongside the coast of what should be China. On July 6, 2023, Warner Brothers issued a statement explaining that the map in the concerned image is a childlike crayon drawing, with the dashed lines depicting Barbie's journey from Barbie Island to the real world, and was not intended to make any type of statement. Jordan Richard Schoenherr from Concordia University said that while the map might seem innocuous, the repeated presentation of images that supported the goals of the Chinese regime risks increasing their acceptance by the audience and is therefore a cause for concern. 218 In the world map drawing, dashed lines can be seen near Asia, the United States, Greenland, Brazil, and Africa. In some Muslim-majority countries, there were attempts to ban the film on moral grounds or for allegedly showing LGBTQ+ themes. Some of them were successful. In Pakistan, the film was released nationwide on July 21, 2023. The Punjab Film Censor Board, which handles the censorship in the Punjab province, and other regional equivalents, cleared the film for screening. But on July 22, Punjab province's caretaker Minister of Information and Culture Amir Mir used his authority to halt the screenings of the film in the province, alleging that it shows homosexuality. Punjab's Information Secretary Ali Nawaz Malik told Dawn that the film has been sent to Dubai for a censorship review. On August 1, the final approval was given for the film to be shown in the province. In the Middle East, the film was initially scheduled to be released on July 19, 2023, before being delayed to August 31. Later, Vox Cinemas, the distributor of Warner Brothers films in the region, announced that the film would be released in the region on August 10. Although the film censorship authorities in the region initially did not specify any reason, it was suggested that the inclusion of a transgender actress in one of the Barbie roles, and the narrations and dialogues related to LGBTQ+ matters might have been the issues with the film. On August 9, 2023, Lebanon's Minister of Culture Mohammad Mordadada, who is backed by Hezbollah, proposed that the film be banned in the country for promoting homosexuality and sexual transformation and values of faith and morality by diminishing the importance of the family unit. Following Mordadada's proposal, the Minister of Interior and Municipalities Bassam Malawi asked the relevant authority, which is under the scope of Interior Ministry's General Security, to review the film and give its recommendation. On August 11, it was reported that the Lebanese authority, comprising the representatives from the General Security and the Ministry of Economy and Trade, found no reason to ban the film in the country. On September 1, the film was formally approved for screening in Lebanon for audiences aged 13 and above. Barbie was released in Lebanese theaters on September 7. Also on August 9, 2023, the Kuwaiti authority, which formally announced the ban of both Barbie and Australian horror film Talk to Me, which stars a non-binary and transgender actor, with the head of the authority Laaf al-Subay accusing the former of carrying ideas that encourage unacceptable behavior and distort society's values. On August 13, 2023, just 3 weeks after its release on July 19, the screenings of Barbie were halted in film theaters in Algeria. According to Reuters, the official source was quoted as saying that the film promotes homosexuality and other Western deviances and that it does not comply with Algeria's religious and cultural beliefs. Barbie grossed $636.8 million in the United States and Canada, and $810.9 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $1.448 billion. This was described by Warner Brothers as reaching a billion. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $421 million, accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations, and other costs, box office grosses, television and streaming, and home media revenues placed it second on their list of 2023's most valuable blockbusters. It was described as a record-breaking box office success during its opening weekend, and set the record for any film that was not a sequel, remake, or superhero property. Barbie became the highest-grossing live-action comedy film of all time, smashing the domestic record formerly held by Home Alone, 1990, and the worldwide record formerly held by The Hangover Part 2, 2011, simultaneously. It has also become Gerwig's highest-grossing film, overtaking its predecessor Little Women, 2019. The film crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide on August 6, 2023, making it the only film by a solo female director to do so. This was also the fastest Warner Brothers film to reach $1 billion, beating Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, 2011. In late August, Barbie surpassed that same film again, becoming Warner Brothers' highest-grossing film, not adjusted for inflation. By September 2, the film surpassed $1.365 billion at the global box office, replacing the Super Mario Bros. Movie as the highest-grossing film of the year. Additionally, it became the highest-grossing film by a solo female director, surpassing the previous record held by Jia Ling for Hi, Mom, 2021. In the United States and Canada, Barbie was released alongside Oppenheimer, and was originally projected to gross $90 to $125 million from 4,243 theaters in its opening weekend, with Warner Brothers predicting a $75 million debut. The week of their release, AMC Theaters announced that over 40,000 AMC Stubs members had pre-booked tickets to both films on the same day. It earned $70.5 million on its opening day, which included $22.3 million from Wednesday and Thursday night previews, both of which were the best of 2023. Barbie's opening weekend gross of $162 million marked the largest opening since Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, $181.3 million in November 2022. It was also the biggest opening ever for a film helmed by a female director, besting Captain Marvel, 2019, and surpassed Suicide Squad, 2016, to have Robbie's highest opening weekend, as well as Blade Runner 2049, 2017, to have Gosling's largest opening weekend. It scored the third highest July opening weekend at the time, behind The Lion King, 2019, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. This also marked the third highest opening weekend for a Warner Brothers film, after the latter film and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, 2016. Barbie also scored the biggest opening for a film based on a toy, surpassing Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, 2009. 259. Furthermore, it dethroned The Secret Life of Pets, 2016, to achieve the biggest non-sequel July opening weekend. Upon opening, Barbie reached the #1 spot at the box office, defeating Oppenheimer, Mission: Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Sound of Freedom. Following its opening weekend, Barbie surpassed The Dark Knight, 2008, as the highest Monday gross ever for a Warner Brothers film, collecting a total of $26.1 million. It also quickly beat La La Land, 2016, to become Gosling's highest-grossing film of all time. In its second weekend, the film earned $92 million, dropping by 43%, which was the largest sophomore weekend ever for a Warner Brothers film and the seventh largest ever. The film remained in first place with $53 million in its third weekend, and $33.7 million in its fourth weekend. On August 16, 2023, Barbie once again surpassed The Dark Knight, this time as the highest-grossing domestic release in Warner Brothers history, having earned $537.5 million. The film was dethroned in its fifth weekend by newcomer Blue Beetle, $25 million, though it continued to hold well with a gross of $21.5 million. On August 24, 2023, Barbie surpassed the Super Mario Bros. Movie, $574 million, to become the highest-grossing film of the year in North America. Barbie finished in second place again in its sixth weekend, this time behind newcomer Gran Turismo. Outside of the United States and Canada, Barbie earned $194.3 million from 69 offshore markets in its opening weekend. Of the 69 markets, it was the #1 film for the weekend in 58, scored the largest opening weekend for a Warner Brothers film in 26 and marked the largest opening for a 2023 film in 24. In the United Kingdom, the film opened with $24.2 million, which was the year's largest opening. In France, it opened with $10.2 million, marking the largest debut for a Warner Brothers film since Joker, 2019. The following weekend, Barbie earned $127 million, dropping by just 31%. It remained the #1 film of the weekend in 57 markets. Within its sophomore weekend, it became the highest-grossing film of 2023 in Brazil, as well as the highest-grossing Warner Brothers release ever. In Australia, the film scored the largest second week ever, for a running total of $30.6 million after 2 weekends. In the UK, Barbie began outpacing the 10-day total of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, Warner Brothers' highest-grossing film in the country, in its second weekend. In its third weekend, Barbie grossed $74 million from 69 markets for a drop of 41%. The highest-grossing overseas markets were the United Kingdom, $120.8 million, Germany, $56.5 million, Australia, $55.6 million, Mexico, $54.3 million, and France, $47.6 million. In Ireland, Barbie became the highest-grossing film in history with $9.57 million, surpassing Avatar, 2009. By contrast, in South Korea, where the film opened on July 19, 2023, Barbie underperformed at the box office. During the period between July 28 and 30, 2023, the film recorded around 81,000 admissions, earning $667,000, and finished in the 5th place in the South Korean box office, falling behind Smugglers, around 1.17 million admissions, $9.31 million, Elemental, around 360,000 admissions, $2.85 million, Mission: Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, around 300,000 admissions, $2.43 million, and Detective Conan, Black Iron Submarine, around 89,000 admissions, $703,000. It was suggested that the animosity against feminist messages in the film, the lack of popularity of Barbie dolls in South Korea, and cultural differences between United States and South Korea have contributed to the film's underperformance there. Film critic Yoon Sung-ian told Yonhap news agency that in South Korea, where the recognition of feminism is not good, people don't want to accept that an amusement-like film has a message about social issues, and that the film uses its later half to preach about sexual discrimination, which might be hard to accept to South Koreans. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Kang Ha-young, the producer of Smugglers, said, "I couldn't understand why Hollywood went so wild about Barbie, perhaps because it has never been our toy." Writing for the Korea Times, Professor Emeritus Mark Peterson at Brigham Young University opined that the film underperformed in South Korea because it was one fully loaded package of American culture of the last 50 years, which didn't convey much meaning to South Korean audiences. In Japan, Barbie ranked at number 16. Prior to the release date, public opinion of Barbie had soured after the official Twitter account for the Barbie film had responded positively to several Barbenheimer memes, all of which depicted atomic bombing mushroom clouds comically. This was seen as an endorsement of such jokes, and, in turn, was met with disapproval from the Japanese public, who criticized their ignorance, particularly due to their negligence towards the history of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mitsuki Takahata, who provided Barbie's voice in the Japanese dub of the film, stated on her Instagram account that she was disappointed and had considered dropping out of one of the film's promotional events. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 88% of 506 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8/10. The website's consensus reads, "Barbie is a visually dazzling comedy whose meta-humor is smartly complemented by subversive storytelling." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 80 out of 100, based on 67 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, while those polled by PostTrack gave it an 89% overall positive score, with 79% saying they would definitely recommend the film. In his review for the Chicago Tribune, Michael Phillips called Barbie a lovely, eccentrically imaginative example of brand extension and raw, untrammeled commercialism, applauded the production design, and summed, "The crucial partnership here is the one between director and performer, Gerwig and Robbie. Anything Gerwig and Baumbach's verbally dexterous script requires, from Barbie's first teardrop to the final punchline, Robbie handles with unerring precision." Richard Brody of The New Yorker called it brilliant, beautiful, and fun as hell, claiming the giddily stylized vision of a doll coming to life makes a serious case for the art of adapting even the most sanitized IP. And commended the free and wild direction as well as the profuse and exquisite visual aesthetics. Charlotte O'Sullivan of the Evening Standard hailed the film as easily the comedy of the year with a large amount of fun, where star and producer Margot Robbie, and writer-director Greta Gerwig, have done themselves proud with a breezily outrageous film about a woman's right to be weird, dark, and crazy. Eileen Jones of Jacobin said that the film manages to overcome cumbersome plotting and feminist pieties to provide a delightful spectacle of funny moments that add up to something pretty good. In The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw awarded Barbie a 3 out of 5 stars, describing it as beamingly affectionate and deliriously pink-themed but perhaps a giant 2-hour commercial for a product, and highlighted Gosling as a scene stealer, being given all the best lines. Lovia Gyarki of The Hollywood Reporter called the film a tricky balancing act of corporate fealty and subversion, lauding Gerwig's direction, the set design, costumes, soundtrack, and lead performances, but criticizing the muddled politics and flat emotional landing. Variety critic Peter DeBrugge praised the humor for giving permission to challenge what Barbie represents and lauded Gosling's physical performance, but concluded that the film is an intellectual experience, not an emotional one, grounded largely in audience nostalgia. In the Vulture component of New York, Alison Willmore commended the lead performances, particularly that of Robbie, whom she characterized as capable of heartbreaking earnestness as humor, and who sometimes effortlessly achieved both at once, but lamented the themes of the film, opining that it doesn't ultimately want to do much more than talk itself in circles about these themes. On a similar note, Stephanie Zacharek of Time praised Robbie's buoyant, charming performance, Gosling's go-for-broke effort, and the inventive production design, but criticized the self-aware nature of the film, especially following the first half hour, concluding that it is a feminist film only in the most scattershot way, and that it is not subversive. 304. A mixed review in Le Monde also expressed doubts about the treatment of the topical issue and found that the doll drowned herself in kitsch derision, while GQ France, regretting that the film did not prove as radical as might have been expected, found it was somehow a continuation of Little Women. Camilla Long of The Times wrote that the film featured Madele's pink, squealing, corporate grasping, trying to be ahead of the sexism curve, but ended up feeling sexist itself for its portrayal that men are stupid, go to the gym, run everything and don't care about women, while women are sensible, striving but ultimately conflicted victims. In the review by Kyle Smith in the Wall Street Journal, he stated, "As bubbly as the film appears, its script is like a grumpier than average women's studies seminar, exemplified by the Mattel employee character's long monologue on how miserable it is to be female." MovieWeb ranked it number 1 on its list of the best comedy movies of the 2020s, so far, writing that Gerwig's ode to the Barbie girl and her Barbie world, is as surprisingly modern and introspective as audiences have come to expect from her work. Scrunching 60-plus years of history into a 2-hour time frame aside, this film gets straight at the heart of what it's like being a woman today while providing more than a laugh or two in the process. Chinese film critic Li Jingfei praised the film's humor and criticism of patriarchy, qualifying that its themes were too often advanced by slogans rather than the experiences of its characters. Filmmakers such as Alison Anders, Joe Dante, Drew Goddard, Chad Hartigan, Rachel Morrison, and Paul Schrader also cited the film as among their favorites of 2023. In June 2025, IndieWire ranked the film at number 46 on its list of the 100 best movies of the 2020s, so far. In July 2025, it ranked number 84 on the Reader's Choice edition of the New York Times list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. The National Board of Review and the American Film Institute named Barbie one of the top 10 films of 2023. The film's soundtrack, album and score received 12 nominations at the 66th Annual Grammy Awards. Barbie tied with Cabaret, 1972, for the second most nominations in Golden Globe Awards history, earning a leading 9 at the 81st edition. It would ultimately win 2 awards at the ceremony, including Best Original Song, for What Was I Made For, and the inaugural Golden Globe for Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. Earning 18 nominations at its 29th ceremony, the film received the most nominations in Critics' Choice Movie Awards history. Longlisted in 15 categories at the 77th British Academy Film Awards, Barbie, along with Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon, equaled the BAFTA longlist record for most nominations set by Edward Berger's German anti-war film All Quiet on the Western Front, 2022. It also received 8 nominations at the 96th Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor, Gosling, Best Supporting Actress, Ferreira, and 2 nominations for Best Original Song, for I'm Just Ken and What Was I Made For. It eventually won Best Original Song, for What Was I Made For. As with the doll itself, feminism and related themes in the film were the subject of discussion. Some reviews for the film saw it as satirizing capitalism, while others perceived it as being a satire utilizing capitalist themes. Barbie has been characterized as exploring themes of existentialism. Lucy Ford of GQ wrote that the film ruminates on the very idea of what makes us human, the idea of the other, whether there's truly such a thing as autonomy or if we're all simply pawns to be picked up and disposed of when we are no longer useful. Ford observed that, in the film, Barbie and Ken go on opposite but equal journeys of self-discovery, after venturing out into the real world and learning that it is an oppressive patriarchal society as opposed to the matriarchal utopia that is Barbie Land, and get caught in the crosshairs of being both sentient and someone else's idea, battling with free will and the omnipresent predetermined rules about where to go and how to act. In Clark University, professor of philosophy Week Diemling compared a scene in the film, in which Barbie has to make a choice between going back to her perfect life in Barbie Land or learning the truth about her existence in the real world, to The Experience Machine, a thought experiment by American philosopher Robert Nozick. Diemling also observed that gender in Barbie Land is performative, noting how the Kens behave before and after a patriarchy is established. Alyssa Wilkinson of Vox compared Barbie Land to the biblical Garden of Eden, with Barbie and Ken as inverted parallels of Adam and Eve. She saw Barbie and Ken's first impression that they're suddenly self-conscious and aware of being looked at in the real world as the film's version of the fall. Chinese film critic Li Jingfei compared Barbie's sudden awareness of death to the moment when Siddhartha Gautama left the palace of his birth and first learned of suffering and death, which eventually led to his enlightenment. Katie Pickles of The Conversation said that Barbie shows how the matriarchy can be as bad as the patriarchy, with the Kens being the objectified and excluded sex in Barbie Land. Pickles further comments that the true heroes were outcasts such as Weird Barbie and Alan, who deprogrammed the Barbies from tolerating the status quo. She believes that this aligns with Gerwig's conception of feminism, where everyone stands in the sunshine. Jack Butler of National Review rejected the perception of the film as a shallow, man-hating, and repulsive screed and argued that the film is instead a post-feminist satire of what feminists imagine a perfect world looking like and of what they imagine male dominance is like, noted that in the real world, Ken is rebuffed in all of his attempts to join the male hierarchy that purportedly dominates the world. He must return to Barbie Land to institute it. What he institutes there is so shallow that it collapses almost as quickly as it is set up. Meanwhile, though Robbie's Barbie restores female dominance in Barbie Land, she chooses not to stay there, electing instead to become fully human. Ross Douthat, writing in the New York Times, argued that the film is a movie with a feminist default, but also has complicated and sometimes muddled feelings about what the sexual revolution has done and where feminism ought to go. Douthat comments that the female-centric nature of Barbie Land is dystopian, where men are nothing more than arm candy, and where pregnant women and children are marginalized. He describes the film as against the resilient patriarchy, but wary of the girl boss alternative. It wants womanhood and motherhood, but it doesn't want the Kens back in charge, and it doesn't really know what purpose men should serve. Many journalists coupled Barbie with the Eras Tour by Taylor Swift for the concurrent representation of recontextualized mainstream femininity. Michelle Goldberg of the New York Times described the launch of the film and the tour, their rave public reception, and the associated critical discourses as the biggest cultural phenomena of 2023 summer, explaining that beneath their slick, exuberant pop surfaces, both the film and the tour tell female coming-of-age stories marked by existential crises and bitter confrontations with sexism. 346 Ben Cicerio considered both the works as critiques of patriarchy. 347 While Talia Lakritz of Business Insider said both of them reclaim girlhood without rescinding power. 348 Similarly, Chris Willman stated that both use patriarchy as a subject of irony while being utterly friendly to and welcoming of men as much as anybody, eventually becoming a billion-dollar earning phenomenon. In the Los Angeles Times, Jean Guerrero presented a subtext to the film's feminist exterior, in which a world that disregards men and their feelings is an inverted form of patriarchy and also cruel, and added, "The film is a rare product of mainstream culture that invites men to reimagine masculinity for their own sake. It acknowledges the identity crisis and loss of hope, economic promise, and life purpose among American men. These struggles are often ignored by progressives, but conveniently and poisonously exploited by right-wing manfluencers from Andrew Tate to Josh Hawley. The film's reception has focused on its messages of women's empowerment, but what makes it a radical story is that it also invites women to reimagine feminism so that it doesn't ignore male struggles. Nicholas Balaisis contended in Psychology Today that Barbie provides a relatively nuanced portrayal of masculinity in two cases that resonated with issues and concerns frequent in clinical psychology and therapy. In the first case, which concerns the overvaluation of a woman's gaze and attention on male sense of self-esteem, and even an existential sense of identity, Ken turns to patriarchal expression and masculine dominance over other men, women, or objects because he does not receive the sense of attractiveness, worth, and general self-value he wants from Barbie's gaze and attention. In the second case, which concerns the relationship to shame or existential solitude and the conversion to sex as soothing, when Barbie approaches Ken in the third act of the film for consolation, he interprets it as a sexual advance and tries to kiss her, which Dr. Balaisis likened to the same way that shame can quickly morph into resentment and anger. Here we see loneliness and existential angst being converted into a sexual plea for sex to solve and resolve these bad feelings. Megan Garber of The Atlantic found that Ken and his journey of self-discovery mimics adolescence, writing, "Like any teenager, Ken is figuring out who he is, and trying the world's possibilities on for size. But his immaturity is not contained, and this is its problem. His adolescent approach to the world, instead, inflicts itself on everyone else." Garber concluded that Ken embodies a core idea in the film that patriarchy is a profound form of immaturity. Eliana Docterman of Time noted that Ken's radicalization resembles the men's rights movement, particularly in his feelings of emasculation, male fragility, and evangelization of the patriarchy. On July 25, 2023, following Barbie's premiere, Gerwig stated she had no plans for a sequel. On August 4, it was reported that Gerwig, co-writer Baumbach, and stars Robbie and Gosling had been contracted for only one film. On December 13, 2024, The Hollywood Reporter reported that a sequel had entered early development, with Gerwig and Baumbach set to return. Representatives for Warner Brothers, Gerwig, and Baumbach denied the claim. In July 2025, it was reported that Illumination and Mattel Studios finalized a deal to develop a theatrical animated Barbie film with Universal Pictures set to distribute. However, the project is not intended to be connected to the live-action film. She's just a Barbie girl living in a Barbie world, Barbie Island to be exact. But life in plastic isn't so fantastic right now. Usually, every day is a great day for stereotypical Barbie. She wakes up with perfectly coiffed hair and fresh breath. Her shower water is the perfect temperature. Her heart-shaped toast pops perfectly onto her plate. And everything about her life makes her happy and fulfilled. Until suddenly, for reasons unknown to Barbie, she starts thinking about death. And when she asks the other Barbies if they ever think about it, things literally screech to a halt. Embarrassed, Barbie plays it off. The party resumes. But Barbie goes to bed that night ill at ease. And the next day is decidedly not a great day. Barbie's jolted awake by loud music, her breath smells foul, her shower is the wrong temperature, and her toast is burnt. Worst of all, Barbie's feet, permanently arched for high heels, go flat. "You're malfunctioning," her friends tell her. "You have to go see Weird Barbie." So she does. But what Barbie learns doesn't comfort her. Weird Barbie tells her that there's a connection between Barbie Island and the real world where humans live. What humans do with their Barbie dolls in the real world affects what happens to their counterparts in Barbie Island. For instance, if someone playing with a stereotypical Barbie doll in the real world feels sad and lonely, then stereotypical Barbie might transform into existential dread Barbie or depressed Barbie. But stereotypical Barbie doesn't want to become depressed Barbie. She wants things to go back to feeling normal. To do that, she'll have to travel to the real world and cheer up the girl playing with her. But, of course, Barbie has no idea that the real world isn't what she imagined it to be. You see, in Barbie Island, Female Barbies have positions of authority and prestige, like being the president or members of the Supreme Court. Or maybe a pilot or doctor. In Barbie-land, women run everything, while the Kens, well, they don't really do much. But when Barbie and Ken, her boyfriend, get to the real world, it's like nothing they've ever experienced before. You almost can't talk about the Barbie film without addressing the original doll created by Ruth Handler in 1959. Barbie was designed after Ruth realized the only dolls on the market were baby dolls, intended for little girls to imagine themselves as future caregivers. And Ruth wanted her own daughter, whom the iconic toy is named for, to know she could be anything she wanted to be. Now, as we know, the invention of Barbie didn't suddenly make it possible for women to achieve all their goals. And there's also some controversy surrounding Ruth Handler, more on both those topics in Negative Elements. But Barbie did spearhead a movement that allowed little girls to dream of whatever sort of future they wished. So, for the past 64 years, Barbie has acted as the every woman, representing women from multiple different career paths, ethnicities, and even body types. Though that last one only came about after years of parents complaining that the stereotypically thin Barbie was ruining their children's self-esteem. And this film reflects that history. The cast is quite diverse and inclusive. And while there are some caveats in that, see sexual content, for the most part, it's a good thing. The film's most poignant message isn't delivered by a Barbie, though, but by Gloria, a mom from the real world. Gloria's relationship with her teenage daughter, Sasha, is fractured due to Sasha's feelings of hopelessness about the world, many of which Sasha blames Barbie and the company responsible for her, Mattel, for, and Gloria's perceived contribution to it, since she works for Mattel. But Gloria isn't blind to Sasha's concerns. She speaks into how women, including her daughter, often feel extreme social pressures. And women often have to navigate double standards in their relationships with both men and other women. Gloria tenderly voices how some of these expectations are admittedly self-imposed, often because of poor self-image. And she acknowledges that even someone who perfectly embodies all of society's ideals, Barbie herself, can feel this way. At this point, we should note that the film employs extreme and satirical stereotypes to make some of the following points. But it does so because Barbie herself is an extreme stereotype. Gloria realizes she's part of the problem, it's why she and Sasha have drifted apart. But she refuses to let the sexualized capitalism and rampant consumerism, Sasha's words, enhanced by Barbie's existence, to continue to rule her life. Gloria helps the Barbies learn that who they are isn't determined by some CEO on the top floor of an office building in Los Angeles. Rather, each individual Barbie has the ability to choose who she wants to be and what she wants to do. This new knowledge not only frees the Barbies from the societal constraints they thought they had to live by, but it helps them to recognize and reconcile with members of their community they had inadvertently ousted, such as the overlooked Ken dolls and discontinued Barbie dolls. Speaking of Ken, he has an important moment of self-realization as well about his identity and what will ultimately fulfill him, leading him to become a much kinder and more gracious man. In the end, Barbie-land, much like the real world it reflects, doesn't necessarily get everything perfect. But its residents' desire to keep trying to make the world a better place for everyone is a pretty nice message. Elsewhere, characters apologize when they realize they're in the wrong. When things go poorly for Barbie, to the benefit of Mattel's pocketbook, Mattel's CEO tries in earnest to fix the problem since Barbie represents the dreams of little girls everywhere. Characters are encouraged to honestly express their emotions. They also learn that it's okay to make mistakes and show vulnerability. There's a reference to The Shining when two women begin experiencing each other's emotions. Barbie eventually meets the ghost of an old woman living, apparently, in Mattel's headquarters. It's none other than Ruth Handler, and she takes Barbie on something of a spiritual journey as Barbie ponders whether or not she wants to become completely human or remain a doll. Ruth is referenced as the creator, and, indeed, She has something like the wisdom one might expect of a creator deity. When Barbie first arrives in Los Angeles, multiple men stare and catcall her. Barbie, who's never been objectified in her life, states how self-conscious this makes her feel. She opposes this behavior by announcing, "I don't have a vagina." Then she looks at Ken and adds, "And he doesn't have a penis." Ken is embarrassed by this statement and counters it with the lie that he does, in fact, have male bits. Elsewhere, Weird Barbie, played with oddball aplomb by Saturday Night Live alumni Kate McKinnon, makes it clear that the lack of certain anatomy doesn't deter her. As the film progresses, Barbie and her friends are repeatedly objectified. We're shown a montage of men putting their arms around women to help them with simple tasks. Many unhealthy stereotypes are portrayed to demonstrate other unwanted attention from men. And Barbies even trick some Kens through flirting, ultimately pitting the Kens against each other for the Barbie's affections. Barbies occasionally wear swimsuits and other outfits that bare some skin, including cleavage. Many Kens like to walk around sans shirt, and the camera makes sure we notice in stereotypical Ken's case. There's a poster of some Miss Universe contestants in bikinis. We see one Barbie from the shoulders up as she showers and later wrapped in a towel. One of Barbie's outfits has stars on her backside. As mentioned above, Ken pines for a romantic relationship with Barbie. However, she only sees Ken in a platonic way. Therefore, whenever Ken tries to kiss Barbie, she rejects him. When Ken asks to spend the night at her house, she denies his request. And Ken admits that he doesn't know what they would do if he slept over, only that it's expected of couples. We learn that some Barbie dolls were discontinued because of ill-advised concepts, such as a Ken doll called Sugar Daddy, because he has a pet dog named Sugar, a growing-up Skipper doll whose breasts grow, and earring Magic Ken, which many consumers nicknamed Gay Ken. Another doll, Pregnant Barbie Midge, had a short shelf life because, we're told, the marketplace just thought the concept was too weird. We see pictures in the credits of the original packaging that show a preborn baby in the credits. Barbie historians will know that Midge's husband was Alan, who also shows up here, though isn't connected to Midge in the film, as an ally to Barbie, and basically the only male character who doesn't look or act like a Ken. Sexual orientation, per se, isn't directly addressed in Barbie Land itself. However, some Barbies and Kens are portrayed by members of the LGBT community, and this occasionally comes through in their portrayals. Some male characters here could be seen as being quite effeminate, too. Parents should note that Hari Neff, a trans performer, plays one of the female Barbies. We see a same-sex couple flirting in the real world. During a dance sequence, several Kens embrace, and two kiss stereotypical Ken on his cheeks. One of Mattel's lowly office workers asks the question, "I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman?" Another double entendre repeated multiple times between Kens involves the phrase, "I'm gonna beach you off." One Ken eventually says, "I'm gonna beach both of you off." So while there's little here that's explicit, some will identify LGBT subtexts in winks in certain moments throughout the film. Someone describes Mattel's office building as phallic. The CEO boasts about their gender-neutral bathrooms. A man calls a woman Jezebel, a reference from the Bible used as an insult to imply a woman is licentious, after which many people question if they're allowed to use that term anymore. As Barbie is being objectified in the real world, she notes that there's an undertone of violence, which Ken, pointedly, is impervious to since he's a guy. Moments later, a man whacks Barbie on her rear, and she spins around to punch him in the face, which she's arrested for. Gloria also talks about this, pointing out how ridiculous it is that women are expected to tell men when they're acting inappropriately, but not in a way that causes a scene or else they might become a target. Dozens of Kens go to war against each other in a battle of the egos, which is the only thing that gets hurt in this fight. Using plastic lacrosse sticks and tennis rackets, they shamelessly whack each other into submission. One Ken is put into a headlock. Another receives a purple nurple. But the only real injury is a human's arm, which winds up in a sling after he's caught in the crossfire. Stereotypical Ken gets jealous when he believes Barbie is texting another Ken. He snatches her phone from her to prove it. Despite not appearing particularly strong or masculine, Alan gets into a fight with several Ken dolls, brutally beating them up. But again, no lasting injuries, just bruised egos. One scene depicts several little girls smashing their baby dolls to bits after the creation of Barbie, an homage to a similar scene with Monkeys and Bones from 2001. A girl plays roughly with her Barbie doll, chopping off its hair, coloring its face with permanent marker and then kicking the doll in the crotch after bending its legs into the splits. As a result, this Barbie's counterpart in Barbie Eland sports a choppy haircut, strange facial markings and is perpetually stuck doing the splits. A Barbie car crashes a couple of times. But the vehicle is undamaged and the passengers unharmed. Several of Mattel's top executives chase Barbie through their corporate office, leaping at her, and missing, in an attempt to stop her from escaping their custody. The F word is bleeped out in one scene. We hear a single use each of H and D, N. God's name is misused 7 times and Christ's name is abused once. In the credits, we hear rapper Nicki Minaj's song It's Barbie B, CH, with that titular line being repeated several times. After traveling to the real world, Ken starts drinking brewski beers and demanding that Barbie and her friends to serve the drink to him and the other Kens. It appears that many executives have alcoholic beverages during a meeting. Someone drinks from a wine glass at a party. As I mentioned before, many of the good points addressed in Barbie come through the use of extreme stereotypes. But those stereotypes also create problems we have to address, too. Here's what I mean. Barbies believe that Barbie Eland is a perfect reflection of the real world, i.e. that women run everything. So when Barbie arrives on the scene, she assumes a woman is in charge. And she's shocked to learn that none of Mattel's top executives are female. And Mattel's current CEO blusters about 2 women who ran the company in the past. Additionally, the lack of female leadership makes an already vulnerable Barbie, made self-conscious by the overt objectification she experiences from men, feel even more helpless. And she's heartbroken that women in the real world aren't inspired by her and even seem to hate her. In contrast, Ken loves the real world. He believes that men rule everything, after visiting an office building seemingly run by men, and strives to learn everything he can about patriarchy. He takes his knowledge of patriarchy back to Barbie Eland and begins using it to flip the gender dynamic there. He and the other Kens brainwash the Barbies into believing they should serve men. They become incredibly condescending to the Barbies, demanding things like drinks and foot massages. And they change everything to expand and elevate the presence of men since Ken believes that's what the real world does. The film uses these exaggerated and obvious expressions of male chauvinism and sexism to show what many women experience, an element of the story that will likely resonate with many women. But unfortunately, that resonance often comes at the expense of men. Their portrayal here, even if it's arguably intended for satirical effect, is often demeaning and belittling. We see men depicted as vain, selfish, self-centered, abusive, and generally narcissistic, with precious few examples to the contrary. And even as men are called out for their bad behavior, similar behavior among the female Barbies is, at times, celebrated as women turning the tables. Ken is, himself, the biggest example of a man who's depicted as insecure and needy one moment, but ruthlessly willing to use women once he undergoes his own patriarchal transformation. Before visiting the real world, it's stated that Ken only has a good day if Barbie looks at him. He spends all of his time trying to impress her and win her affection. After his journey, he becomes your worst idea of toxic masculinity. And when the power is taken back by the Barbies, he's reduced to a sobbing, pouting mess. Though admittedly, he eventually confesses whilst crying that he never wanted to be in power to begin with. He just wanted Barbie to respect him and went about it in the worst way possible. We're told, in a sense, that in order to stop patriarchy, women need to rise up and take over everything. In fact, stereotypical Barbie is even encouraged to hurt Ken, emotionally, because of how he rudely treated her. Which is exactly what the Barbies do. And the Kens docilely submit to the Barbies. Actions are taken to make amends and create a more equal society in Barbie-land. However, the film still makes a point about men versus women. Because when the Kens request to serve in Barbie-land's higher government, they're pointedly denied since Kens will have more power in Barbie-land when women have more power in the real world. Families should also be aware of the unrealistic beauty standards upheld by this film. Yes, Barbie and Ken, the dolls, have become much more diverse over the years. And the film makes a lot of good points about how these are terrible standards, and while their focus is female-driven, you can't look at Ryan Gosling as Ken and not see the unrealistic standards there, as well. But it doesn't change the fact that the vast majority of actors and actresses cast in this film are still really pretty people. A point not lost on the filmmakers since the narrator herself pokes fun at it. Gloria also speaks into the beauty conversation, commenting on how women are told to be thin but not too thin, but they can't say they want to be thin but healthy, but they still need to actually be thin, according to society. Again, this is touted as a bad thing, but then one of the main reasons that Barbie visits the real world to fix herself is that she's developed cellulite. Barbie also tries to poke fun at depression and anxiety, and not in the kindest way. In addition to Barbie beginning to experience these emotions both for herself and through the human playing with her in the real world, we see an ad for Depression Barbie. The doll is depicted looking tired with no makeup and tangled hair. A plastic Barbie dog, based on a real toy, poops plastic turds. Many Barbies gag and dry heave when they learn stereotypical Barbie's feet have gone flat. Barbie yaks after drinking expired milk. Ken uses a barf bag. Sasha, Gloria's daughter, calls Barbie a bimbo and a fascist. She's also pretty rude to her mom on several occasions. A few people lie. Some characters make bets. There are some racial comments. We learn Ruth Handler, Barbie's creator, was arrested for tax evasion. Barbie and Ken are arrested after stealing clothes from a store, though they didn't know they had to pay. Ever since Barbie was first announced, I couldn't help but think, welp, I wonder how Hollywood is going to ruin my childhood this time. But the film defied my expectations, even as it had some problems I hadn't expected. Let's hit on the things I thought would be the worst offenders first. I expected there to be a ton of unnecessary profanity and gross sexual content. There's actually not a lot of gratuitous content here. Profanity is limited, a single F word is bleeped out though, Nicki Minaj's end credits song is repeatedly profane, though God's name is misused a number of times. And sexual content, while present, is mostly constrained to a handful of verbal suggestions and double entendres. Barbie, the doll, has been a topic of sexual objectification almost since her inception. Women want to look like her. Men want to be with her. She's the ideal of society's beauty standards. And yet, she's always been impervious to these ideas because, well, she's a doll. By bringing Barbie to life, she begins to embody what it actually means to be a woman. She voices how uncomfortable objectification makes her. She shuts down attempts to flirt with her. She discusses the impossible standards expected of women by society. And she begins to feel a sense of dread because even though she's done nothing to warrant this treatment, and everything to prove she's somehow worthy, she and the women around her are still subject to it. But therein lies a serious problem with the film. At its core, I truly believe Barbie wants to teach girls to stand up for what's right, to hold true to their beliefs and especially to support other women. And these are great aspirations. Unfortunately, the way the message is delivered shines Ken, and all men, in a really bad light. Because Barbie uses extreme stereotypes to make a point, it fails to show how the average man behaves toward women. And it even sorta blames guys for all the negative emotions women have ever felt about themselves or other women. The Kens of Barbie Land are simpish and weak. Then they take power and become obnoxious and crass. So if Barbie Land is supposed to be a reflection of the real world, then there's no space for a man who respects women but also respects himself. And there's also very little suggestion that men can use their strength and masculinity in selfless ways that might protect and defend someone who's genuinely vulnerable. For families who are interested in this film, I believe these are navigable issues. That said, I would highly recommend that if your teenage daughter wants to see Barbie, go with her. Because if nothing else, the film can serve as a catalyst for conversation about societal expectations, feeling unworthy and the perception that our world is inherently male-dominated. Sending your teens off to see Barbie alone is definitely risking some indoctrination into the narrative that being a good man is synonymous with being submissive or weak. Or the idea that good men themselves are as rare as a unicorn. This narrative also suggests that women have to rise up and seize control if they want to be respected. Those narratives aren't true, of course. But without a little hand-holding, it might be hard for teens to remember that their value and worth isn't based on their appearance, whether or not they have the respect of their peers or even on their accomplishments. All things characters falsely believe at different points throughout the film. That might feel like a bit of spiritual draw for a movie that has absolutely nothing to do with faith. But for me, whenever I experience the anxieties that Barbie, Gloria, and Sasha all face in the film, it brings me a lot of comfort to know that God made me for a purpose and that I am fulfilled through Him. I try to keep up with the majority of movies released, but this little indie slipped under my radar until it came to streaming last month. I decided to give it a shot. Listen, there's no way around it. Structurally, narratively, thematically, Barbie is a total clusterfuck. I watched it with my wife and I must have said about 10 times what the hell is happening right now. The world building is gibberish, and the thematic through line is non-existent, unless you count saying the words yay feminism, boo patriarchy with jazz hands to be a theme. No sooner has Barbie committed to one thread before it abruptly jumps to a next one. Greta Gerwig just kept saying yes. For a minute it's a riff on Toy Story and the way we project complex feelings and societal ideas onto our disposable plastic playthings. The next, it's a toothless, cartoony critique of capitalism and its hypocrisies via the Mattel board. The next, it's a zealous bit of Yas Queen feminism with the intellectual depth of an Instagram caption. The next, it's a heist movie. The next, it's a campy parody of classic musicals, etc. 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 And should it open with an extended 2001, A Space Odyssey parody? Why not? Once I realized about a half hour in that this was a no-discipline kitchen sink film, I gave up. And I mean that positively. I decided that the way I was going to enjoy Barbie was to let go of any desire for it to provide a coherent experience or worthwhile lesson. Instead, I let it wash over me, embracing bits of production design, individual gags, and performances without expecting it to do much more than offer fleeting pleasure and inventiveness. And you know what? It worked. I ended up having quite a bit of fun for the remaining 3/4 of Barbie and have softened in my feelings thinking back on parts that initially bugged me. Barbie both suffers and benefits from the experience I felt while watching and reflecting upon everything everywhere all at once. It's big and gaudy and messy, and whenever I try to explain what works about it, I end up pretty quickly talking myself into a pretzel where I dwell on what's broken rather than what lands. But if I only think about how it makes me feel as an expansive artistic experience, then it clicks. This conundrum is increasingly common when I watch movies. Barbie is part of a style I call fantastical postmodern maximalism that is not only creeping into Hollywood, but gaining genuine traction among industry heads. Birdman's Best Picture win over Boyhood acknowledged it, EEAO's win locked it in. These films aim to wow you with ambitious storytelling sweep, structural gambits, and buckets of style. They cut against the grain of modern, linear storytelling and explore topics assuming we've heard these stories before and need to deliver their message in indirect, perhaps ironic, ways. Maybe 5 or 10 years from now I'll look back and wonder why I ever thought I liked the daunting muchness and incoherence of these movies and weep for the lack of focus and small-scale pleasures in our cinema. For now I'm having fun riding the wave. Nothing in Barbie is more maximal than the lavish costume and production design. It's hard to imagine a more colorful, playful mise-en scene than Barbie Land. Never will the term dollhouse aesthetic be more apt than for these geometric, open-air sets. And we spend our time in Barbie Land bumping into a cavalcade of attractive actors and actresses parading around in a feast of wonderful outfits. Should we preemptively designate Jacqueline Duran the winner for Best Costume Design? Cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto brings out all the colors with lovely photography, crisply hyperlit like a toy commercial. A quick aside, if the dollhouse moniker didn't give it away, the film seems to pull heavily from the cinematic style and language of Wes Anderson, whose work has also been on my mind given his busy 2023. In particular, there are shots of traveling between the real world and Barbie Land that have the same "this could be a postcard" compositions of recent Anderson films. I wonder if Anderson hadn't gone so deep into his own rabbit hole if he could have a bona fide hit in 2023. Barbie's acting is quite a bit of fun, possibly the best part of the film. Ryan Gosling as Ken has received the lion's share of headlines and awards season buzz. He's quite good, and frankly Ken, perhaps ironically, gets the most interesting and persuasive arc in the movie, not to mention the TikTokable "I'm Just Ken" musical sequence. No surprise his performance is getting attention. But I think Margot Robbie's performance is not just better and more complex, but solidifies her hold as one of the most daring actresses currently working. It's tough to imagine anyone else pulling off this and Babylon less than a year apart. Both weaponize and deconstruct her outrageous beauty, but in very different ways. Both require a commitment and interiority for heightened, quasi-human characters. Given its daunting busyness, the sheer density of images and gimmicks and plot ideas, I'm not sure there's ever been a movie where it's easier to make a sprawling bullet list of reactions to the film. Here are 2 notes that I didn't manage to fit elsewhere in this review. 1. America Ferrera is one of Hollywood's best comedic straight actresses, here used in a boring and unpleasant character stuck delivering rants and platitudes. 2. The late montage of the cast and crew home videos is the single most unnecessary part of the film, and it still made me choke up. But is Barbie good? And, relatedly, is Barbie good for movies as a commercial art form? I'd say, in both cases, I'd offer a very soft yes. Starting with the latter question, I'd much rather a colorful, playful, messy film like this be the box office runaway train than another superhero movie or Jurassic Park 7. If studios take away the right lessons, give emerging filmmakers like Gerwig budget and support for grand, high-concept projects, rather than the wrong ones, we need more movies based on toy brands and should force gimmicky marketing campaigns like Barbenheimer, then Barbie would be a miracle. A pathway to escape Marvel malaise. Then again, the odds of them learning the right lessons are pretty much zero. I would be remiss if I didn't remind people that Teen Beach Movie used similarly colorful aesthetics, on a TV budget, to explore the complexities and contradictions of feminism 10 years ago. And it did so while riffing on old beach party movies rather than a dull, much funnier idea, with one of the most banging soundtracks of the past quarter century, and to much more resonant thematic effect. Back to the question of whether Barbie is good, it's tough to say because this is such a confounding film. If I put every creative decision in a ledger of what works and what doesn't, I think it would tilt negative, particularly with regards to the overbearing screenplay. And yet, I was smiling most of the time. It's fun to look at, fun to let it drown you in its noise. Of course, it's no fun at all if you want a comprehensible story with a digestible theme or a coherent treatise on modern womanhood. But better an incoherent joyride than a focused bummer. Right? Maybe I should call it a guilty pleasure? Barbie, director and co-writer Greta Gerwig's Summer Splash, is a dazzling achievement, both technically and in tone. It's a visual feast that succeeds as both a gleeful escape and a battle cry. So crammed with impeccable attention to detail is Barbie that you couldn't possibly catch it all in a single sitting. You'd have to devote an entire viewing just to the accessories, for example. The costume design, led by two-time Oscar winner Jacqueline Duran, and production design, led by six-time Oscar nominee Sarah Greenwood, are constantly clever and colorful, befitting the ever-evolving icon, and cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto, a three-time Oscar nominee, gives everything a glossy gleam. It's not just that Gerwig & Co. have recreated a bunch of Barbies from throughout her decades-long history, outfitted them with a variety of clothing and hairstyles, and placed them in pristine dream houses. It's that they've brought these figures to life with infectious energy and a knowing wink. Barbie can be hysterically funny, with giant laugh-out-loud moments generously scattered throughout. They come from the insularity of an idyllic, pink-hued realm and the physical comedy of fish-out-of-water moments and choice pop culture references as the outside world increasingly encroaches. But because the marketing campaign has been so clever and so ubiquitous, you may discover that you've already seen a fair amount of the movie's inspired moments, such as the 2001, A Space Odyssey homage and Ken's self-pitying 80s power ballad. Such is the anticipation industrial complex. And so you probably already know the basic plot. Barbie, Margot Robbie, the most popular of all the Barbies in Barbie-land, begins experiencing an existential crisis. She must travel to the human world in order to understand herself and discover her true purpose. Her kinda sorta boyfriend, Ken, Ryan Gosling, comes along for the ride because his own existence depends on Barbie acknowledging him. Both discover harsh truths and make new friends along the road to enlightenment. This bleeding of stark reality into an obsessively engineered fantasy calls to mind the revelations of The Truman Show and the Lego Movie, but through a wry prism that's specifically Gerwig's. This is a movie that acknowledges Barbie's unrealistic physical proportions and the kinds of very real body issues they can cause in young girls while also celebrating her role as a feminist icon. After all, there was an astronaut Barbie doll, 1965, before there was an actual woman in NASA's astronaut corps, 1978, an achievement Barbie commemorates by showing two suited-up women high-fiving each other among the stars, with Robbie's Earthbound Barbie saluting them with a sunny, yay, space. This is also a movie in which Mattel, the doll's manufacturer, and Warner Brothers, the film's distributor, at least create the appearance that they're in on the surprisingly pointed jokes at their expense. Mattel headquarters features a spacious, top-floor conference room populated solely by men with a heart-shaped, Dr. Strangelove-inspired lamp hovering over the table, yet Will Ferrell's CEO insists his company's gender-neutral bathrooms up the wazoo are evidence of diversity. It's a neat trick. As the film's star, Margot Robbie finds just the right balance between satire and sincerity. She's the perfect casting choice. It's impossible to imagine anyone else in the role. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed stunner completely looks the part, of course, but she also radiates the kind of unflagging, exaggerated optimism required for this heightened, candy-coated world. Later, as Barbie's understanding expands, Robbie masterfully handles the more complicated dialogue by Gerwig and her co-writer and frequent collaborator, filmmaker Noah Baumbach. From a blinding smile to a single tear and every emotion in between, Robbie finds the ideal energy and tone throughout. Her performance is a joy to behold. And yet, Ryan Gosling is a consistent scene stealer as he revels in Ken's himbo frailty. He goes from Barbie's needy beau to a swaggering, macho doofus as he throws himself headlong into how he thinks a real man should behave. Viewers familiar with Los Angeles geography will particularly get a kick out of the places that provide his inspiration. Gosling sells his square-jawed character's earnestness and gets to tap into his all-new Mickey Mouse Club musical theater roots simultaneously. He's a total hoot. Within the film's enormous ensemble where the women are all Barbies and the men are all Kens, with a couple of exceptions there are several standouts. They include a gonzo Kate McKinnon as the so-called weird Barbie who places Robbie's character on her path, Issa Rae as the no-nonsense President Barbie, Alexandra Shipp as a kind and capable Dr. Barbie, Simu as the trash-talking Ken who torments Gosling's Ken, and America Ferrera in a crucial role as a Mattel employee. And we can't forget Michael Cera as the one Alan, bumbling awkwardly in a sea of hunka Kens, although everyone else forgets Alan. But while Barbie is wildly ambitious in an exciting way, it's also frustratingly uneven at times. After coming on strong with wave after wave of zippy hilarity, the film drags in the middle as it presents its more serious themes. It's impossible not to admire how Gerwig is taking a big swing with heady notions during the mindless blockbuster season, but she offers so many that the movie sometimes stops in its propulsive tracks to explain itself to us and then explain those points again and again. The breezy, satirical edge she established off the top was actually a more effective method of conveying her ideas about the perils of toxic masculinity and entitlement and the power of female confidence and collaboration. One character delivers a lengthy, third-act speech about the conundrum of being a woman and the contradictory standards to which society holds us. The middle-aged mom in me was nodding throughout in agreement, feeling seen and understood, as if this person knew me and was speaking directly to me. But the longtime film critic in me found this moment a preachy momentum killer, too heavy-handed, too on the nose, despite its many insights. Still, if such a crowd-pleasing extravaganza can also offer some fodder for thoughtful conversations afterward, it's accomplished several goals simultaneously. It's like sneaking spinach into your kids' brownies or, in this case, blondies. Like so many other people in the summer of 2023, I ventured out with my mother and sister to go see the Barbie movie. I knew I was going to see this movie even when I heard the whispers of Greta Gerwig directing it. And when I saw the trailer for the first time in a movie theater, it was like love at first sight. And, clearly, it was the same deal for so many other people out in the world. We ended up seeing it in a sold-out theater right after I stopped having COVID symptoms. Don't worry, I happily masked, and we felt it was an appropriate amount of time after I stopped having symptoms, and I was able to redeem my birthday popcorn and soda for the event. And oh man, this is a movie you have to go into with zero expectations. It's fun, it's kind of outlandish at times, and it's an intro to feminism course. Seeing the reactions to the film were hilarious because some people completely missed the point of it, although this isn't a philosophical feminist film until you really start to think about it. Which most people won't do, they'll instead laugh about the film and tell their friends to see Barbie, recalling all their favorite moments. I see no point in recalling the summary of this movie, which is something I do with my other blog posts, so let's dive deeper into my personal analysis of the movie and how it uses humor to subtly get its points across. I kind of inherently knew that Gerwig was going to go off on a different route than her past movies, as this is too mainstream for her to get a Lady Bird moment across. We get hints of that with the dynamic between the mother and daughter in the movie, but we lose that important thread. I think we could have an entirely different movie about them learning to love each other again and connect, but instead it's lost in the noise of Barbie. I think that's one of the biggest shames of the movie. I think it's great they reconnected because of a doll the daughter thought was stupid in the beginning, but I wanted to see more of them. The writing also felt lazy at times when it came to Will Ferrell's character because, while it seems like it's very true and representative of how the upper circles of CEOs work, his character existed just to be humorous, but too real, connection to how out of touch these executives are. When they appear at the end of the movie to essentially do nothing, it feels so pointless to me. Which, again, leads back to the notion that maybe there were too many threads for this short of a movie. Those were my biggest critiques of the movie. I think it's fine that it's a superficial kind of feminism that doesn't go too deep. It's not a film that wants to go into the deep end of feminist theory because that would isolate a large part of the people wanting to go see this movie. But, at the same time, the digs and jokes that come into play here are a critique of the world as a whole, which is why some people are getting butthurt when it comes to how Ken jokingly discovers the patriarchy and turns it into a massive joke throughout the movie. In my humble opinion, Margot Robbie and Michael Cera are the best parts of the movie. I wasn't fond of the gag at the end of the movie when the narrator mentions how Margot Robbie shouldn't have been cast in the role for a certain line of dialogue, as it felt like a cheap joke that wasn't necessary. Both times I saw the movie, people died when they heard that joke. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. To each their own. Margot Robbie has to become more human throughout the movie, and she does just that through her acting. When she sees an elderly woman for the first time in her life, and calls her beautiful, I got a little emotional. I became a huge Robbie fan when she was in Babylon. I think she was robbed of an Oscar nomination for that role. But my sophomore year of college I saw Michael Cera in a Broadway play, The Waverly Gallery, and I've been such a huge fan since, because although he's usually used in character roles, he's actually a good actor. I saw him in a serious role on Broadway. The character of Alan draws sympathy because there's only one of him and he wants out of this world. He seems aware, too, that there's a way out of here and is willing to use his fists, something the other characters in Barbie Elan don't do. I think this is a difficult role to pull off because he isn't one-dimensional like the other Barbies and Kens. Alan also is a foil for Weird Barbie, as there's only one of them in this universe and they're kind of considered weird and left out by the other Barbies and Kens, although Alan kind of wants to fit in and hangs around wherever there's action. It's a solid movie. I like that it brings feminism directly into its conversation and that it's popular, although many people might simply forget about these kinds of themes throughout the movie in favor of joking about the patriarchy. As an academic-minded person who studies women and gender, although in the Asian continent, there's something I wonder about the consequences of satirizing it in this manner. People will see it as something to laugh about or generalize it as fiction, which can be dangerous in itself. This is always my worry when it comes to mainstream movies and feminism. I don't think I've quite sorted out my feelings on this, but I'll continue to mull over it for a while. Think this film brings up important topics, but I wonder if people are just brushing it off as a joke when the patriarchy is still real. It's not just dudes obsessed with horses, which is a concern when media literacy is really bad right now. Check out the brain on Barbie. Sure, she's just a doll, but that doesn't mean she has to be an airhead. Therein lies Lady Bird director Greta Gerwig's inspired, 21st century solution to bringing one of America's most iconic playthings to life on the big screen. Combine that with the casting of Margot Robbie in the title role, and Barbie is already starting out on the right, perfectly arched foot. So what if this high-concept comedy falls a bit flat in the final stretch? Barbie's strength as a brand comes from her aspirational appeal. While some have rightly criticized the doll for setting unrealistic beauty standards, Barbie also showed girls they can do and be anything, as different models have portrayed her as president, a rocket scientist, even trans. You know who else sets unrealistic beauty standards? Movie stars. Like Barbie, they serve as role models, which is what makes Gerwig's take on the ultra-popular toy line so darn smart. Robbie might be a dead ringer for Barbie, but her moxie powers the performance. Gerwig has made the kind of family film she surely wishes had been available to her when she was a girl, sneaking a message, several of them, really, inside Barbie's hollow hourglass figure. That's an admirable achievement, given understandably protective corporate parent Mattel, though let's be honest, in the year 2023, it would be a shock, and box office suicide, if Barbie arrived without some kind of female empowerment message baked in. This one checks all the right boxes, while making Ryan Gosling's Dum Dum Ken the butt of most of its gender equity jokes. Boasting fresh tracks from Billie Eilish and Lizzo, the result is a very funny kids movie with a freshman liberal arts student's vocabulary that tosses around terms like patriarchy and appropriation, pretty much everything but problematic, which the movie implies without actually calling Barbie's legacy. That's the front on which Gerwig and Noah Baumbach's script feels most daring. Barbie doesn't just poke fun at Mattel, it comes right out and accuses the best-selling doll of setting back the women's movement. As one indignant teen tells Barbie, "You've been making women feel bad about themselves since you were invented." This reproach stuns Robbie's upbeat character, who wakes up every day in the always sunny, hot pink fantasy world where Barbies come in all colors and body types. They win Nobel Prizes and occupy all 12 seats on the Supreme Court. And they're occasionally pestered by dozens of Ken dolls, who are clearly insecure about being sold, and kept, separately. Barbie Land, as it's called, is an inherently hilarious alternate reality modeled on the dream that Mattel has been selling American girls since the doll was introduced in 1959. It looks a lot like the one they've seen in countless commercials, where flamingo bright Barbie dream houses inspire envy as a diverse collection of perky, positive-minded dolls smile and wave at one another, represented here by such avatars as Alexandra Shipp and Dua Lipa, Issa Rae and Ritu Araiu, Hari Nef and Sharon Rooney. It's a wild pop art space, all but exploding with super-saturated color, where the doll heads appear lower contrast and backlit, obliging us to squint to make out the actors' faces. You half expect to see a giant hand reach in from the sky to interact with these lifelike toys, but that's not how it works. Instead, Gerwig enlists Helen Mirren as narrator to lay out the rules, pausing now and then to spotlight specific costumes, interject vintage TV spots or cast shade on discontinued products such as Growing Up Skipper, with her inflatable bust, Pregnant Midge, or questionable taste offerings like Sugar Daddy and Tanner, a flock dog that poops plastic pellets. Although Robbie's blonde-haired, fair-skinned stereotypical Barbie seems to possess some abstract notion of herself as a toy, there's a major disconnect between inventor Ruth Handler's best intentions and the state of things in the real world, where the movie spends roughly half its time thanks to Barbie. All problems of feminism and equal rights have been solved, Mirren sarcastically summarizes. One evening, in the middle of a dance party, stereotypical Barbie blurts out, "You guys ever think about dying?" The next morning, she's horrified to find her feet have flattened and a patch of cellulite has appeared. What could be threatening her near-perfect physique? The answer lies in the real world, where Barbie and Ken, Gosling's Ken, not the ones played by Simu Liu, Kingsley Ben-Adir, John Cena and others, steer her pink Corvette, emerging at Venice Beach wearing matching fluorescent hot skating ensembles. Yes, Barbie is one of those movies, like the Smurfs and the Super Mario Brothers movie, where imaginary characters cross over to modern-day America just infinitely more clever. Instead of using the premise as a setup for slapstick, Gerwig shows Barbie defending herself when some random guy slaps her butt, getting a knuckle sandwich in return. The script is no less on the nose about its politics, and in any case, Gerwig and Baumbach's social critiques seem more than reasonable. Their script merely emphasizes how lopsided the real world remains in its treatment of women, up to and including Mattel's corporate headquarters, where a working mom named Gloria, America Ferrara, holds an entry-level job, while the boardroom is packed entirely with guys in suits. At the head of the table sits Will Ferrell in what is easily the film's laziest casting choice. Hasn't he played a dozen versions of this character before, most obviously starring as Lord Business in the Lego Movie? Defaulting to Ferrell means passing up the chance to create a memorable original embodiment of the kind of men who run corporate America. At the same time Barbie is experiencing her rude awakening, Ken's busy filling his empty head with all the possibilities that patriarchy entails. In Barbie Land, Ken's job is a deliberately ill-defined afterthought, basically, just beach, whereas in the real world, dudes rule, an idea he takes back to Barbie Land with pointedly absurd results, brainwashing all the women into behaving like obedient housewives. The film's draggier second half gets both silly and unabashedly strident, as stereotypical Barbie seeks help from Weird Barbie, Kate McKinnon, a damaged goods doll with singed hair and messed up makeup who serves as this girl world's Morpheus-like sage. It's upsetting, in a useful way, to see Barbie confronted with the overnight impact of rampant patriarchy, a concept that has rarely looked more off-putting than the frat boy fantasy caricatured here. Think of it as the misogynist alternative marketed by old-school beer commercials, the polar opposite of Mattel's mid-80s "we girls can do anything right, Barbie" campaign. While the Barbies plot to take back the government, Gerwig gives all the Ken dolls an over-the-top musical number, "I'm Just Ken," which is so amusingly self-involved it risks subverting the very point the movie's trying to make. If Barbie is all about centering and celebrating women, why let Ken steal the show? Gosling is a good sport to play the slightly predatory, sartorially helpless pretty boy, as the spray-tanned ex-Mouseketeer parodies his popular hey girl persona, flexing both his muscles and a range of facial expressions all but lacking from his recent work. If Robbie's Barbie sets an impossibly high bar for young women, then Gosling's Ken reps an equally formidable male model, with his chiseled abs and cheekbones. That factor hasn't escaped Gerwig, who sets out to disrupt such unattainable aesthetic standards, calling out ways the doll's idealized design can harm self-esteem and encourage eating disorders. She crams most of that critique into a single motor-mouthed monologue, which drew cheers at the premiere and which, on closer inspection, contains not a single controversial idea. In the end, the trouble with Barbie isn't that it goes too far, but that it stops short, building to a conceptual scene between Barbie and her creator, Rhea Perlman, that inadvertently underscores one of the movie's few failings. It's an intellectual experience, not an emotional one, grounded largely in audience nostalgia. The power of nostalgia ought not be underestimated with a property like this, as much of Gerwig's approach skews toward grown women and gay audiences who've owned the dolls and for whom she's embedded deep-cut trivia and hidden references throughout. The movie was clearly made by people who understand how kids' imaginations work when playing with Barbies, even if Gerwig uses the project as the delivery device for what sounds like an undergraduate gender studies lecture at times. Most of its points are positive ones for young girls to hear, while those that earn the film its PG-13 rating will fly right over their heads as they feast on all the eye candy, including recreations of classic looks by Jacqueline Duran, costumes, and Sarah Greenwood, production design. It's kind of perfect that Barbie is opening opposite Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, since Gerwig's girl power blockbuster offers a neon pink form of Inception all its own, planting positive examples of female potential for future generations. Meanwhile, by showing a sense of humor about the brand's past stumbles, it gives us permission to challenge what Barbie represents, not at all what you'd expect from a feature-length toy commercial. I understand the reasons behind the widespread appreciation for this film. It operates on multiple levels, marking its significance within the cultural landscape. Notably, it deviates from the typical consumerism-driven adaptations, for example the Transformers series, opting for a daring approach to transform a stereotypical doll into one that defies stereotypes. What surprises me even more is that the film received approval for its bold satire, frequently mocking the symbolic representation of the doll. Given that Mattel, the toys manufacturers, typically prioritize toy sales, one would expect them to advise director Greta Gerwig to temper such bold commentary. Yet, this expectation is not realized in the film. Greta Gerwig, instead of succumbing to the allure of plastic perfection, embraces witty satire without falling into the pitfalls of creating an overtly agenda-driven film. The film possesses a heart and soul that elevates its impact. The linchpin of this success is the meticulously crafted script, a collaborative effort between Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. For instance, the narrative unfolds predominantly in Barbie Land, a vibrant pink realm inhabited by various incarnations of Barbie, including Judge Barbie, President Barbie, Journalist Barbie, Dr. Barbie, Weird Barbie, and more. The toy's existence in Barbie Land mirrors how real children engage with Barbie dolls, and as long as everything remains well in the real world, Barbie Land flourishes. The fantasy perpetuated by Barbie Land is that the dolls serve as inspirational figures in the real world. However, the film explores the consequences when the dolls lose their adoration. The central figure in this world is stereotypical Barbie, portrayed by Margot Robbie, who holds a revered status due to being the original Barbie. The film takes a poignant turn when stereotypical Barbie discovers an imperfection, behold, flat feet, challenging her pursuit of perfection. This event catalyses a journey into the real world, where Barbie aims to understand why her child companion is dissatisfied, leading to her own self-discovery. Another standout character is Ken, played masterfully by Ryan Gosling, who accompanies Barbie into the real world only to find out what real men are like. he is inspired by the behavior of real men and decides to take these ideas back to Barbie Island where, unexpectedly, they become very popular among all the other Kens. The brilliance of the writing filters through the dialogue, musical elements, and visual aesthetics of the film. However, it is when Barbie and Ken venture into the real world that the film truly comes into its own. The realization that the real world is imperfect, and that toys play a role in shaping it, deeply affects Barbie, prompting her to question her identity and self-worth. Meanwhile, Ken returns to Barbie Island with newfound ideas about patriarchy and male dominance, causing a ripple effect in the glittering, pink perfect doll world. What unfolds is a comedic satire infused with heart, a rarity in contemporary cinemas. With top-tier writing, acting, and production values, it's no surprise that this film achieved box office success. Unlike CGI-laden action spectacles, its triumph stems from a compelling narrative with a profound message, meticulously crafted and seamlessly executed. Greta Gerwig's direction elevates this film beyond categorization. It challenges norms with its unconventional aesthetics and message, establishing her as a director of complexity and skill. Through her lens, a seemingly banal pink toy transforms into a meaningful concept that transcends its initial trappings, leaving an enduring impact for generations to come. The fallacy of Barbie the doll is that she's supposed to be both the woman you want to be and your friend, a molded chunk of plastic in a brocade evening dress, or a doctor's outfit, or even Jane Goodall's hyper-practical safari suit, which is also supposed to inspire affection. But when you're a child, your future self is not a friend. She's too amorphous for that, and a little too scary. And you may have affection, or any number of conflicted feelings, for your Barbie, but the truth is that she's always living in the moment, her moment, while you're trying to dream your own future into being. Her zigzagging signals aren't a problem, they're the whole point. She's always a little ahead of you, which is why some love her, others hate her, and many fall somewhere in the vast and complex in-between. With Barbie the movie starring Margot Robbie, also a producer on the film, director Greta Gerwig strives to mine the complexity of Barbie the doll, while also keeping everything clever and fun, with a hot pink exclamation point added where necessary. There are inside jokes, riffs on Gene Kelly-style choreography, and many one-line zingers or extended soliloquies about modern womanhood, observations about all that's expected of us, how exhausting it all is, how impossible it is to ever measure up. Gerwig has done a great deal of advance press about the movie, assuring us that even though it's about a plastic toy, it's still stuffed with lots of ideas and thought and real feelings. She and Noah Baumbach co-wrote the script. For months now there has been loads of online chatter about how subversive the movie is, how it loves Barbie but also mocks her slightly, and how it makes fun of Mattel executives even though their real-life counterparts are both bankrolling the whole enterprise and hoping to make a huge profit off it. The narrative is that Gerwig has somehow pulled off a coup, by taking Mattel's money but using it to create real art, or at least just very smart entertainment. It's true that Barbie does many of the things we've been promised. There is much mocking and loving of Barbie, and plenty of skewering of the suits. But none of those things make it subversive. Instead, it's a movie that's enormously pleased with itself, one that has cut a big slice of perfectly molded plastic cake and eaten it or pretend eaten it too. The things that are good about Barbie: Robbie's buoyant, charming performance and Ryan Gosling's go-for-broke turn as perennial boyfriend Ken, as well as the gorgeous, inventive production design, end up being steamrollered by all the things this movie is trying so hard to be. Its playfulness is the arch kind. Barbie never lets us forget how clever it's being, every exhausting minute. That's a shame, because the first half hour or so is dazzling and often genuinely funny, a vision that's something close to, though not nearly as weird as, the committed act of imagination Robert Altman pulled off with his marvelous Popeye. First, there's a prologue, narrated by Helen Mirren and riffing on Stanley Kubrick's 2001, explaining the impact of early Barbie on little girls in 1959. She was an exotic and aspirational replacement for their boring old baby dolls, whose job was to train them for motherhood. Gerwig shows these little girls on a rocky beach, dashing their baby dolls to bits after they've seen the curvy miracle that is Barbie. Then Gerwig, production designer Sarah Greenwood, and costume designer Jacqueline Duran launch us right into Barbie Land, with Robbie's approachably glam Barbie walking us through. This is an idyllic community where all the dream houses are open, not only because its denizens have no shame and nothing to hide, but because homes without walls mean they can greet one another each day with the sunrise. "Hello, Barbie," they call out cheerfully. Everyone in Barbie Land except the ill-fated pregnant Mitch, based on one of Mattel's many discontinued experiments in toy marketing, is named Barbie, and everyone has a meaningful job. There are astronaut Barbies and airline pilot Barbies, as well as an all-Barbie Supreme Court. Garbage collector Barbies, in matching pink jumpsuits, bustle cheerfully along this hamlet's perpetually pristine curbs. This array of Barbies is played by a selection of actors including Hari Neff, Dua Lipa, Alexandra Shipp, and Emma Mackey. The president is also Barbie. She's played by Issa Rae. In one of the early section's great sight gags, she brushes her long, silky tresses with an overscale oval brush. Barbie Land is a world where all the Barbies love and support one another, like a playtime version of the old-fashioned women's college, where the students thrive because there are no men to derail their self-esteem. Robbie's Barbie, she is known, as a way of differentiating herself from the others, as stereotypical Barbie, because she is white and has the perfectly sculpted proportions and sunny smile of the Barbie many of us grew up with is the center of it all. She awakens each morning and throws off her sparkly pink coverlet, her hair a swirl of perfectly curled saran. She chooses an outfit, with meticulously coordinated accessories, from her enviable wardrobe. Her breakfast is a molded waffle that pops from the toaster unbidden. When she drinks from a cup of milk, it's only pretend drinking, because where is that liquid going to go? This becomes a recurring gag in the movie, wearing itself out slowly, but it's delightful at first, particularly because Robbie is so game for all of it. Her eyes sparkle in that vaguely crazed Barbie-like way, her smile has a painted-on quality, but there's warmth there, too. She steps into this role as lightly as if it were a chevron-striped one-piece tailored precisely to her talents. This film, directed by Greta Gerwig, written by Greta Gerwig, based on Barbie, produced by David Heyman, starring Margot Robbie, cinematography Rodrigo Prieto, edited by Neg Hoey, music by Mark Ronson, production companies Heyday Films, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures, release dates July 9, 2023, running time 114 minutes, countries United Kingdom, language English, budget $128 to $145 million, box office $1.448 billion.